Over the past couple of days, we have found ourselves in the story of the Samaritan woman. We've seen the passage where Jesus is traveling through Samaria and he chooses to stop at this well. We see that he chooses to speak to this Samaritan woman who would have been neglected, avoided, and cast aside. We see that he chooses to voice into her pain, voice that he knows her sin, and he reaches out to her anyway. And we see he has a call to response to his disciples of how they should respond to this truth. And today we're picking up with her testimony to the other Samaritans in her city and their response. We're going to see in these verses that the Samaritan woman, she comes and she tells them of the Savior that she has met and the Savior that she has seen. And we're going to see their response. So read with me in John 4, verse 39 through 42. From that city, many of the Samaritans believed in him because of the word of the woman who testified, "He told me all the things that I have done." So when the Samaritans came to Jesus, they were asking him to stay with them, and he stayed there 2 days. Many more believed because of his word. And they were saying to the woman, "It is no longer because of what you said that we believe, for we have heard for ourselves and know that this one is indeed the Savior of the world." So we see her testimony first. We see she goes to the other Samaritans and she proclaims to them. And we see that John chooses to focus on one specific part of her testimony, one specific statement that she makes to these people that they find so appealing. That statement that he focuses on is, she says, "He knew everything about me." You see, one of the greatest fears we have when we step out into relationships, when we step out into friendships, when we start to let ourselves be a little more vulnerable, we're always so afraid that that person is going to find out something about us that's going to make them step away. We oftentimes, as humans, have this nagging fear that if they only knew that thing, if they only knew that mess up I made, if they only knew that mistake, if they only knew that problem, that struggle, that past, would they still want anything to do with me? And that's what makes this testimony so powerful. She says, this Savior, this Jesus knew all of it. He told me all of my past failures, all of my past doubts, all my baggage. He told it all. And what makes that statement so much more incredible is not only did he know it all, but he loved it, loved her through it all. He loved her through it all. He saw her sin, he saw her struggle, and he loved her, he forgave her, he showed her grace. What an incredible testimony. He knew her baggage, he still came to her. And that is what she shares with these Samaritans. That's the truth she shares with them, is he's a Savior that knows all your mistakes and wants to know you in relationship regardless. He wants to cover you in his grace. He came for you so that you may know him and may know God. J.I. Packer, in his book, Knowing God, writes of this phenomenon of a God that loves us and knows us. And here's what he says. He says, "There is a tremendous relief in knowing that his love to me is utterly realistic, based at every point on prior knowledge of the worst about me, so that no discovery can disillusion him about me in the way that I am so often disillusioned about myself, and quench his determination to bless me. Nothing I can do and nothing I have done will make God love me any less." And here's what's so cool about this. They hear this testimony, they hear her talk about this Jesus that knew her and loved her. And what happens next? They don't just depend on her testimony. They don't just depend on her experience of that Savior. They ask for him to stay so that they can experience him too. They ask him to stay for 2 days, and they spend time with him. They hear his words, and through hearing his words and experiencing him and knowing him, they reach their own belief. And at the end of this small little passage, they make sure to make the distinction. We no longer trust just off of your words, Samaritan woman. We now know Jesus too. Church family, we have the pleasure of walking with a God who sent his Son to be our Savior, knowing all of our baggage, knowing every sin we've ever committed, every sin we will commit. And he hates the sin but loves the sinner. He shows grace to the sinner so that the sinner can know him and walk in his righteousness. So church family, are we taking that response to that love? Are we resting in it and believing that it covers everything? And are we growing to personally know that Savior that came for us and desired to know us?